Hi, welcome back to Ride Rescue. This hasn't been fun. Been having a really difficult time getting this car to run right. As I mentioned in the last episode, the car was all finished and ready to go down the road, and it did. The new owner was excited, picked the car up. He got home and he sent me a bit of a harsh message. I think he was probably too upset to call me. He said the car ran absolutely horrible. It was backfiring, it was smoking, black smoke, it didn't have any power, it was either stalling out or running extremely high RPM. It just made no sense because I've put a lot of miles on this car and I have not had any issue. In the beginning, when I first started driving the car, I was struggling getting it to idle correctly, but I finally got it all just smoothed out. But the new owner was so upset, he actually said, "I want my money back. I want out of this deal." Well, I knew it couldn't be anything, or at least I thought it couldn't be anything too bad, so I calmed him down. I told him I'll pick the car up, I'll make it right, I'll make sure everything is running perfectly, as it was. Oh boy. What a story. Before I get into the whole insane journey of what all went on under here after I got the car back from the buyer, we'll just kind of go over a few things that I decided, since he's really upset, and after I got the car back and after I drove it and realized why he was upset, I can understand it. It was unpredictable. It was things that were out of my control. It was things that I didn't realize that were about to happen. There's just things that happen, and the timing was horrible just for the fact that it was the day he was taking the car home. He should have been proud and happy, and instead he was pretty upset. Well, one of the things that I mentioned to him, or I should say a couple of things that I mentioned to him when he picked the car up, the key on the driver's side, locked, didn't match the passenger side, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit here too. And the brakes needed to be adjusted. It was a simple adjustment. I should have done it. I mentioned it to him. He seemed like a car guy. It seemed like something that he could take care of. But as soon as I mentioned it, I could kind of see that look in his face, like, well, if it's that simple, why didn't you do it? Well, that was a good point. I'm just assuming that's what was going on in his head, but I think I have a pretty good idea. A pretty good feel for reading somebody and the look on his face. So I'm going to do that too. Because he's upset, I want to do everything. I want to just really go over this car with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that when he gets it back again, it's perfect. There's no issues. I thought that's what I was giving him, other than the key and a brake that needed to be adjusted. So here's the long story of what I just gave you as a short story. When this red car was abandoned in Nevada and impounded and then sold as scrap, the keys obviously weren't with the car, so the trunk, somebody had pried it open in the wrecking yard to see what was inside, and did a lot of damage to the back end of the car. They probably went in with a wire and jimmied open the door locks if it was ever locked. But since it didn't have any of the keys, I need to be able to take these out and get them rekeyed, or even change the key. Fortunately, the gray car had the keys, and so I was able to take the passenger side lock out of the gray car. Since I had the key for the passenger side, the driver's side door was wrecked. You can see in my previous videos, this was hit pretty hard. This area was destroyed. So then it came down to, okay, do I rekey the car to use the original locks, or do I just change this one to match the key from the gray car? Well, since this key works in the glove box and the passenger side, It costs $45 to rekey this lock, or it costs $45 to make a new key for the other locks, but then it didn't match the glove box. So it just made the most sense. I popped the lock out, took it down to the local key place, had them change the lock, and change the tumblers in here to match the key to the driver's side door, and then it's just a matter of putting it back in, and then I'll have to get on the inside, and that's why it made most sense to do it now. While the door panel's off, now I can get in and line that pin up, and once I get that pin lined up, it's just a matter of pushing this in place. So you can see the bar inside. So once that is lined up and that pin and that angle goes up and through, then this little bracket slides back on the back side. And now you can see how it's hanging down there in the back. Then it snaps onto that bar, and by snapping into place there, now that holds that bar from being able to work its way off. So now it's on properly, and I can line up the outer skin. Once that is fully in place and up against the outer skin, then I can slide that bracket, that little U-shaped keeper, into place. And this keeper has grips on it, as well as the spring-loaded bent shape. Once that is lined up and then tapped in, now that'll hold that lock into place. Oh yeah, and all the way down. Got the car back in the shop here in my garage, and I'm just looking over the carburetors and looking at some of the adjustments. Where the choke was closed, it was getting way too much fuel. So I think the idle screws might need to be adjusted a little bit. I'll have to maybe adjust some other things too. And I'm noticing the extra load that is on the mechanical linkage that I purchased for this, because this was originally set up for a vacuum. The vacuum system wasn't working, parts of it was missing. A lot of guys recommended just switching over to a manual linkage. This carburetor had been worked on the bottom butterfly, and it was poorly done, but it worked. It was solid. But now I'm noticing there's some movement there that isn't good. As I release all these pieces from the linkage, you can see now, especially if I take off, you can see how loose that is. Once there's tension on that, it wasn't noticeable, but that's disturbing. So I'm going to take this center carburetor off, take off the bottom butterfly, and I will grind off that spot weld or whatever is welded on there, and either drill it, tap it, and screw it, or maybe I'll just braze it on, or both. Might be a good way of doing it is this back carburetor here, in order to change for the linkage, that one had to be drilled out and tapped and screwed. I need to get a bucket or a cup or something to pour some of the fuel out as I start handling it a little bit more. I'm getting fuel all over, so I'll take care of that right now. If I'm really careful, I'm hoping I don't damage this gasket when I take the bottom butterfly off, but I don't want to be working on this while it's still attached to the carburetor.
pretty sure I have this bottom gasket if I need it. Gasket survived. I'll get that ground off, and looks like everything else is good and solid. There's not any wear or play on that shaft, so I just need to get that mounted properly. A little dimple in the end of that shaft. I'm just going to go ahead and take advantage of that dimple and drill and tap and put a screw in this. When you're tapping into brass or any of the soft metals, you gotta go just slow and gentle and back it off. You don't want to gall up the threads before you even get started. Make sure you have plenty of lubricant. Back it out. Clean as much of that shaving off. That bottoms out, and I've got just enough room for a washer. So that cut perfect. I'm going to put a little bit of a barbed washer on there. I'll clean this oil out now. Clean any metal shavings I might have gotten on it. I found a little locking washer. It's got some really good locking barbs on it. I tested it, tightened it down, and it did bite in to the brass. I'm going to go ahead and use some blue Loctite. Very good. Very, very solid. I'm very happy with that. I want to hold butterflies tight. Now that everything's in place, test it. Make sure there's nothing loose. That is very solid. Oh. Project well done. Before I put this back on, I'm going to go over the other two carburetors really good. I've got a friend that is coming over that loves working on tri-power carburetors. He's going to help me get this adjusted. We'll adjust the choke, probably adjust the timing and the dwell and everything about the carburetor off of the center, and isolate the two outer carburetors, and then once we get this one dialed in, then we can play around with the outer carburetor. As you can see, the butterfly is all the way open. The temperature in my garage right now is 55 degrees. So once I open up the butterflies and get the pressure off, that should be pretty close to being closed. Not all the way shut, just a little bit of a gap. So definitely need to adjust the choke. I don't want a lot of choke because that will pull the lever over that runs the idle up higher. So I'm going to give it just a little bit at this temperature. I'll just fire it up real quick to get a feel how it's going to start up, and then it's about 25 degrees outside, so I'm going to go ahead and pull it outside and leave it for a little bit. Get it really cold and then try it again. Now let's start this thing up and see what it sounds like.
need to adjust it open just a little bit more. Pull that shut and bring that cam up so that it'll idle. Let's try that again. Well, like that adjustment, you can see the butterfly is opened back up again, but the linkage is actually moved to one cog on the idle. So it's idling higher now. So the key will be, I'll pull it outside, get it really, really cold, make sure that it still acts proper, and then I'll need to take it for a drive and make sure that this is all warming up quick enough so that the idle will drop down. So that was one of the things that the new owner mentioned, is it didn't want to come down. The idle stayed up really, really high. Not a good situation, but I think I've got it adjusted properly now with the timing and with the carburetor adjustments. It's just a matter of getting it outside, getting it really, really cold, and trying it again. So after getting everything all back together and getting it running, it ran really, really good. A good friend of mine really knows and loves to work on tri-powers. He's got a really good timing light where he can set advance for the camshaft. So he was excited to come out and help me, and I really appreciated his work. We spent a few hours timing it, tuning it, playing with the carburetors, doing everything that we felt was necessary to get this car running right, and it ran fantastic. We drove it for a few hours. I put probably over 100 miles on the car, around town, out and around where he lived, which is about half an hour from here. Spent a lot of time in the driver's seat. Felt great. It still needed to have the choke adjusted, but that was a very simple adjustment, and things have been pretty warm in the shop. It was warm that day, so the choke wasn't quite set for cold temperatures. It got really cold, so I pulled the car outside and let it set and let it get really cold so that I could adjust the choke, and took it for a drive. Here's a segment of the video. I try to get some clips. It's a little dark, but you can hear the engine running, and then the final shame. I just rolled the car out of the garage. The garage is about 54 degrees. I've got it outside. It's close to freezing outside. Just wanted to test the choke. It's not closing tight, which is about right around freezing temperature. I can push it shut and it's lifting right back up. So it's right where I want it. Let's go ahead and start it up and see how it runs. Hopefully it doesn't idle too high or too low and have it die on me. Sounds really good. Idle's great. It's really sluggish, but that's to be expected with the cold and the choke being closed. I'll have a tendency to pull too much fuel if I really rev it up. So I don't want to get it flooded or start acting funny like that. So now that it's running, I'll let it warm up and we'll take it for a drive. Running really good in reverse. It's smooth, it's not running too high. Doesn't feel like it's bogging down at all. Still a little cold, I feel it stumbling. It's to be expected when it's this cold. the shame of bringing this car back to my garage again, but this time on a tow truck. I'll walk you through in the next episode of what it took to finally get this going and get it to where it was comfortable to drive and it could be depended on. So thanks for watching. Appreciate you tuning in. Give me a like. Appreciate anything you can do that way. Leave me a comment. I love to hear from you. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Goodbye for now.